I think it's interesting that it seems from the stories that Conan is clearly like Middle Eastern, like he probably has brown skin, and then he was played by Arnold in the movies. So that's interesting that he was basically played by a white guy.
Well, but also the thing is that one thing that does show up in Howard's work is that, you know, he's written in the 1920s, a bunch of this stuff. There's a hell of a lot of racism that shows up. So, you know, every description of the women, it's always like their white, glistening skin.
Yeah, yeah, I noticed that. Skin like the moonlight. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are things that are clearly today, nobody would write like that today. Or, I mean, if you do, it's because you're friends with the KKK, because it's clearly goes back to a war that doesn't, you know, in some way you can see it as, he was a guy growing up in Texas in the 1920s. What do you expect? You know, he was kind of absolutely the norm. Conan is described as having blue eyes. You know, his dark hair but blue eyes. So there is this kind of like ethnically somewhat. But Howard was definitely, you know, a big. He had some pretty clear racial ideas that today would very much fit into a more racist camp.
And then obviously, like probably again, like you were saying there, I'm assuming mostly because it was a product of the time in a way. His like sort of misogyny in a way, like at the end of some of the stories, if he rescues the princess or there's some other chick with him, he just like grabs her and starts kissing her. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but you know, he's always in the justified fashion, in the sense that the women are all into him, so it all works out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Never is. So that one tend to, I mean, most of them are the damsel in distress, for sure. That's kind of the role of the women in the story. Not all of them. You know, there's characters like Valeria is badass. You know, she's a great fighter and all of that. So it's not all completely stereotypical. There's some of it, but some of it doesn't fit the bill. Some of it is actually fairly progressive for the times.